this video on I Don't Give an XJ, I'm going to be talking about putting in a raised storage area in the back of my Jeep Cherokee. And the reason for that is in a couple of months I'm going to be taking a cross-country trip with somebody else. And although I plan on sleeping in the Jeep on the left here and having our gear on the right, the other person's going to be sleeping in a tent. But I also want to make this platform as an area that he can sleep if we both need to sleep in the Cherokee at some point in time. Keep in mind, this is not a how-to video yet. I do plan on putting together a video of the actual build and the ideas that I end up using, so that'll be coming in probably another week or two, hopefully. And then also I'm going to put together some videos on that cross-country trip that I mentioned. I'm going to talk about the things that I'm bringing, where we're going, and then hopefully also put out some videos while we're out on the trip. I'm going to be making the platform in 3 different sections, so it's going to basically be 3 cubes, and I'm making it out of plywood and pine board. I decided on pine board because it's light. It was the size that I needed as far as the dimensions, and the plywood, I'm going with that just because it'll be easy to screw into, and I think I can make it pretty sturdy. However, just to give you an idea of the cost for the 2 pieces of 2x4 plywood and the 2 pieces of 2x2 plywood, along with the 5 6-foot sections of 1x10 pine board, it was $108 at my local Lowe's. I couldn't find it any cheaper on Craigslist or Facebook. I'm sure I will after the fact, but that's probably going to be a majority of the cost. All I plan on doing is, other than screwing it together along with some wood glue, I'm also going to use angle brackets on the inside, which I was able to pick up at a local salvage store pretty cheap, and then also the hinges that I'm going to use. I haven't quite decided if I'm going to cover this thing in carpet, and if I do, it's probably just going to be on the outside, and that will be an additional cost. And in one of these videos I'll put a list of everything that I have and the cost that I sunk into it, but it should all come out, I would hope, for under a couple $100. The reason that I went with 10-inch pine board is because then I can put all my ammo cans inside that I decide to take, and they'll actually stand up in there without an issue. And the reason that I didn't save some money and buy 4x8 plywood and cut it myself is because, 1, I can't cut a straight line to save my life, and 2, that way all 4 pieces of plywood are exactly the same dimension width-wise, so I shouldn't have any problem with them fitting up from top to bottom. And I was able to pick out pieces that are pretty much straight without having to worry about any warpage after I cut the plywood. So I plan on keeping it at the 2-foot width. That actually, when I put the top piece on, I am going to actually, and with the 10-inch pine board, it's actually less than 10, it's like 9.5 or something like that. It brings it to the top of the wheel well, which at the top section I'm going to have the full 2 foot and go right up against the wall, and that actually leaves me with enough room to sleep over here at night and even bend my knees and not have to worry about being encroached upon too much, but still have plenty of storage space with the 2-foot width. The dimensions that I plan on cutting this to are 31, 18, and 16 inches. The reason for the 31 inches is because when I take this apart, if I want, I can leave that back piece in. When the seat is folded up, it'll go to the back of the seat and then also to the back of, or the front of the molding. And I can actually use it day to day if I want to, or take it in and out as I want, and still have the back seat for passengers. The reason that I'm cutting these 2 in different sections is because when this is put together, it's going to go all the way to the back of the passenger seat when it's pushed all the way up. And in order for the passenger to be comfortable, we're going to have to push that seat back while we're actually driving. So the idea is to put a hinge on these 2 and flip that piece onto the other pieces while we're traveling. And also I'm going to try to do it so that this hinged plywood piece here is the lid for that cube, and I'll secure that to the cube so that when I flip it over, the whole thing is one piece, and then we'll just have to secure the stuff inside so that it doesn't move around too much. This gives you a general idea of about the size of what it'll be. Sitting a little bit higher because it's on the elevated part of the molding there, but overall it does provide quite a lot of surface area and quite a bit of room inside, even though I'm going to cut it down into 3 sections. The top piece here is going to stay at the full 2 feet. The bottom piece I'm actually going to cut and contour around the wheel well, like that one, but on the other side. And unfortunately, this will split in 2 sections right at the middle of the wheel well. So I'm going to have to figure that out as I go and make sure that there's enough support in that area where if we put some weight on it, it's not going to collapse. But as you can see, it does leave enough room here on this side, about 23 inches for me to sleep in, and there's plenty of room up top for another person to sleep on, and also to be able to sit on this without hitting their head. So I think overall this is going to work out relatively well. So I want to point out that the reason that I'm making this about 18 inches is because I need to take into account how high this total structure will be as I'm flipping it up, to make sure that I don't hit the roof there, especially with all the stuff hanging down in that section. So I'm going to have to do some measurements and figure out the proper length on this section to be able to clear the roof, and also take into consideration that when it goes up to the back of the seat here, it needs to overlap at least, I'd say, about 8 inches, if not maybe more if possible. But I want to have some kind of structure underneath it, and even though when we're laying on it, only our head will be up in that section, or our feet, so there's not going to be a whole lot of weight, but I want to make sure that it's still stable, and I will hold it together with other hardware. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with that yet, but it should be pretty solid. But like I said, it needs to fold up and not hit the ceiling up here when it folds back on itself. So that's just something else that I need to consider. Other than that, that's pretty much it. I plan on making a follow-up video in the next week or two when I finally get to start on this. I got a lot going on at this point in time. But if you have any comments or suggestions, feel free to leave them below, and I can take them into consideration as I'm putting this together. It should be a pretty simple structure. That never works out that way for me, but that's the plan, and thanks for watching.